And welcome back to Face the Nation. Cardinal Timothy Dolan is the Archbishop of New York, of course, and he joins us from the Vatican, where he and the other cardinals are preparing to elect a pope. Your Eminence, thank you so much for joining us. We know that the conclave will start in a matter of days, but what I'm interested in is what happens between now and when the conclave starts.
Bob, happy to answer. First of all, a happy Sunday morning to you, and it's good to be with you. I appreciate the invitation. You ask a very important question, Bob, because the next week is mightily important. When the conclave will start, we don't quite know. But the congregations of cardinals, that's different than the conclave, the College of Cardinals will begin meeting tomorrow morning, Monday at 9:30. We'll go 4 hours every morning. And one of the first things we'll decide is when the conclave will start. Now, the time in between, Bob, and I would predict that's probably going to be at least a week, is very important. We'll pray together, we'll talk together, and we'll get to know each other better.
Well, what actually happens? I mean, I know you have dinners together, you talk about praying together. Do people actually politic? I mean, I'm a political reporter, and I know how it works in the days before a political convention convenes. People meet together. How does
the analogy would not hold, Bob, and you're wise to see that. No, this isn't the New Hampshire primary. Nobody would campaign. We're just getting to know each other better. We'll listen to one another. From what I understand, I've never been part of it. Every cardinal will have the right to speak, and every cardinal will be expected to speak for 4 or 5 minutes, mostly responding to the question, what issues of pastoral urgency do you see challenging the church today? And we'll listen hard. It's going to be very important to me to listen to cardinals from India, cardinals from Latin America. They tell us it's going to be very important for them to listen to us. And this will be a time not only that we begin to kind of get a good consensus on what are the major issues, the vision that we need, the mission of the church, but we'll get to know one another and probably decide which man we're going to elect to be the next successor of St. Peter.
The Pope himself said his papacy has been marked by periods of dark as well as periods of light. He said at some points as if there were times when the Lord was asleep. What are the issues that you think are going to be discussed, and what do you, as the Archbishop of New York, see as the major problems now, Your Eminence, facing the church?
Sure, Bob. The Holy Father was remarkably realistic in his assessment of his 8 magnificent years as successor of Peter. We all know, though, in the 2,000-year history of the church, there's always been those difficulties, those flaws, those sins, those sorrows to which he referred to so eloquently. What do we see now? Even in the informal discussions among the cardinals, I hear cardinals speak about issues of religious persecution throughout the world, that Christianity and Catholics seem to be in the crosshairs of fanatics. I hear religious liberty. I hear a restoration of the nobility of the vocation to marriage and family. I hear the difficulty that we have, particularly in Europe and North America, that's been well documented and that affects not only the Catholic Church but every religion, that a growing number of people have no trouble with God, no trouble with faith, but they have a lot of problems with religion and with the church. For us as Catholics, that's a tough one because we always see Jesus and his church as one. So to restore that sense of luster and reform and purity to the church to attract more people, that's another one we hear about. You hear again about the new evangelization. How are we going to win back those nations, especially in Europe, that are nominally Catholic but have drifted from Catholic fervor? You hear about the growing churches in Asia and Latin America and Africa, where there's more people than they know what to do with, where there's massive material needs. They need more churches, they need more schools and hospitals, they need more priests and sisters and qualified lay leaders. You hear all about the joys, you hear all about the sorrows. It's a magnificent symphony in the life of the church that I find very embracing, very uplifting.
Well, there is also, Your Eminence, things like the cover-up of sexual crimes, pedophiles. You got the cardinal from California who was accused of not being candid about things out there on that front. Are we going to hear something about that? Because I take your point about all of the points that you just made. I understand that. But what we read about and what we hear about are some of these very unsavory things that have come to light.
You bet.
How seriously do the Cardinals take these things, Your Eminence?
We have to take with the utmost seriousness, and we have to have a sense of contrition, realism about confronting that. You're dead right. There's no cardinal with his head in the sand when it comes to these issues. The church, of course, while it is not of the world, it does exist in the world. So it shouldn't surprise us that the afflictions of the world, and you've just named some of them, sexual immorality, perversion, abuse of children, that affects all elements of society and culture, are particularly hideous when it comes to the church. And that will be an issue, I predict it will.
Your Eminence, what about some of the more radical ideas that we hear from time to time about the church? I mean, should priests be allowed to marry? Should women be allowed to become priests? Will those kinds of things come up for discussion?
Well, from what I hear, there's complete liberty at what cardinals want to say. From my own point of view, Bob, and again, I'm a rookie, I've never been in one of these before, I wouldn't think those kind of things would come up explicitly. You've got to remember, Bob, that in Catholic wisdom, we're electing the successor of Peter, whose job description says he is to preserve the integrity and the patrimony of the faith, okay? So if you're talking about radical changes, that's not part of the job description of a pope, see? He's supposed to preserve and hand on intact. Now, here's a big distinction. We can talk, and we better talk, about perhaps a more credible, convincing way of expressing those immutable, timeless truths of the church, because sometimes people tell us they find those things tough to accept or tough to believe. We better think about that. We can't change the what, we can change the how, and how we teach it, how we pass it on, and that'll probably be part of our conversations.
Well, Your Eminence, I want to wish you the very best as you embark on this mission, and hope you'll keep us informed.
I'll keep you informed. I'll keep you in prayer, and I still got that coffee cup you gave me the last time I was on. All right?
All the best, Your Eminence.